Sports and entertainment are unifiers of people, and the Rose Bowl Institute celebrates the power of sports to unite people everywhere. Since 1922, over 100 million fans have witnessed unforgettable moments unlike any other venue in the world. The global recognition of the Rose Bowl Stadium will bring people together to learn, be inspired, and explore discussions that positively impact society, showcasing the qualities these events have stood for over the past near century. Now, America's Stadium is the flashpoint to inspire and to educate the next generation of youth, community, and the country. This is the Rose Bowl Institute.
From that point on, I looked at football different.
People came to me and said, "What are you?"
A lot of people were telling me that I was good at it, and I had a chance to do it, so I just pursued it.
We have these platforms that if we build awareness for and amplify in the right way, we can impact change.
Even going back to your days at Texas within the NFL, how you first encountered racism and how it affected you. Thank you for joining us today as we continue our discussion on race in sports. One of the outstanding symbols of leading by example was Jackie Robinson, a former Pasadena resident, a Rose Bowl Stadium record holder, an icon in the game of baseball, and someone who truly exemplified creating change through sport. We dedicate this series on race and sport to him. Sports have significant meaning to the general public. Players are heroes whose opinions are seen and valued by their fans, especially young ones. League policies matter to society at large as they are highly visible, involve large populations, and have important symbolism. Fan behaviors can also have an impact on the larger populace. Therefore, it is important that leagues, teams, and players have a heightened sense of important societal values, including diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today, we will address race in sports, past, present, and future. I'm humbled and honored to be a part of such an incredible group today. So let's get to that group, huh? First, to kick us off, manager of the World Series champion-winning LA Dodgers, Dave Roberts. Former outfielder that played for 5 MLB teams over a 10-year career, then coached the San Diego Padres, and UCLA alum, Pac-12 love there, before being named Dodgers manager in 2016. Although he played for the Boston Red Sox among many teams, his most notable achievement is the key stolen base in the 2004 ALCS, the United Sox's drive to the historic championship that year. Getting to know Dave over the last few years, I've never met a manager that's connected more with his players than Dave. He also became the first manager of Asian heritage and second African-American manager to lead a team to a World Series title. Next, we have Pro Football Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, an American former professional football player who was a running back in the NFL for 11 seasons. Eric was selected in the first round of the draft and player for the LA Rams, the Colts, Raiders, and Atlanta Falcons. In 1999, Eric was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and in 2019 was named the NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team. Next, we have LA Galaxy phenomenon Julian Araujo, a product of Lompoc, California. He's one of the brightest young prospects in Major League Soccer and the United States. The 19-year-old defender came through the LA Galaxy Academy before signing a first-team contract in 2019, where he has since become a key contributor to the club. Additionally, Araujo was named LA Galaxy Humanitarian of the Year for his extensive support to give back to farm workers from his local community of Lompoc. Lastly, we have founder and president of Angel City Football Club, Julie Uhrman. Julie Uhrman is a founder and president of Angel City. Their recently announced professional women's soccer team probably brought in more attention and more people than you've ever heard of, bringing to LA as part of the NWSL. Julie most recently was the president of media for PEI, where she oversaw the company's media offerings across all verticals. Previously, she served as executive vice president and GM of over-the-top ventures for Lionsgate, building and managing the company's multiple streaming franchises. She's been named one of the 100 most creative people in business by Fast Company and one of the Creative 50 by Ad Age. Thank you all for being here. I'm so pumped to have this conversation. Eric, I'm going to kick it off with you. You've got a new book coming out, Watch My Smoke, coming out next year. It details your history and a lot of different stories, specifically, especially with racism in sport that you've personally dealt with. Can you kind of dive in a little bit to even going back to your days at Texas within the NFL, how you first encountered racism and how it affected you?
Well, I think the first time that I saw that it was my mother who raised my great aunt who raised me. She said, Eric, she says, it's going to always be different for you than it is for those white boys. That was, I mean, and my mother, she was half white, but she didn't want you to ever say that. And I said, Mom, I said, look, in sports, I said, they always play the best athletes. I said, she said, that's not true, son. She said, you'll find out one day. And I think I was 11 or 12 years old. I was trying out for Little League baseball. It was Little League and minor league baseball, because I love baseball also. And in the trials, I hit 3 home runs. I could catch, I could throw, and I knew I'd make Little League baseball. And they put me on minor league, and I was crushed. I mean, I was crushed because some of the kids out there, I mean, I was a lot better athlete than they were. And I won't forget when I went home, I told my mother, she said, what did I tell you, son? She said, it's different for them than it is for you. She said, you'll figure that out one day. As time goes on, you really do. I mean, and I hate to say that, but it really is different for us than it is for them. I mean, and even when I got to the professional ranks, it was a lot different. I mean, being with the Rams, team that I played, I got drafted by. Wish I could have played my whole career there, but did not. And it's funny how the media is now than it was then. You have the beat writers that wrote for the team and covered the teams and really protected the teams. And in a sense, I didn't know. I mean, I'm a young kid. I didn't know. When you stand up to the team, all of a sudden you become a bad guy. You become an ingrate. And I didn't know what an ingrate was. They called me Eric the Ingrate and all that kind of stuff. And a malcontent. I had no idea what all that stuff was. I'll make this story a little shorter. My main thing was that I knew I was being underpaid. I knew I was. I mean, I was the top running back in the National Football League, but I was the 55th highest paid player, which is something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that picture. And, when I left the Rams, it was under not good circumstances, really. But, I always had a soft spot for my football team here. And I think the thing is that as you go through life and you learn. I mean, I think I learned, sometimes you have to be patient. Sometimes things are not going to work out the way right doesn't always win. You'd like to say that right is always going to win, but it just doesn't. It doesn't work like that. And I think one of my most disheartening things that happened to me in Indianapolis was really seeing how racism really was at the forefront in places I'd never been. Like, I'd never been to Indy. I'd only been to Indy when I got traded. I played there, played a game there. I never really spent any time there. But when your team allows the fans to put a banner up hanging over the rails, and I never forgot this. Matter of fact, my friend I used to do, we dated, and we're still best friends today. And she said, I could not believe that when I saw it. She said, I could not believe how. When I know you saw it, and she is a girl, as a woman, she said, I was so hurt for you just seeing that. They hung a banner over with a black baby sitting in an Indian-style position with fried chicken on one side, watermelon on another side, with me with big red lips holding a piece of chicken, not holding a watermelon up. And I just couldn't believe the team allowed that to stay up there for almost a half. And that, it came to a point where let me tell you, Jessica, I love football. I used to love it. I loved everything about it, the smell of it. I knew I could smell it in the grass. I could smell the time of year, just everything about it. And the sad part is that incidents like that made me hate a sport that I used to love so much. and not that you hated people, because, all people aren't like that. That's like saying all white people are bad people. I don't buy that. That's like saying all black people are bad people. All black people are good people. It's not true. All Latinos are good. It's not true. All moms are good moms. That's not true either. But, from that experience really kind of changed the way I looked at my sport and how they were allowing stuff to be done during my sport, during my times. And so, from that point on, I looked at football different. I really did. I liked it. I didn't have the love that I had for it. I played it hard. No doubt I played it because I never wanted to let my teammates down. But I didn't have that same passionate love in my heart for it like I loved it once upon a time, because they had taken that away from me, just by, in a sense, form of racism.
And I think, everyone within this is passionate about, not only the past, but, making change within this. And Dave, I think about, this season and how unique, but even tapping into your past, your history. I mean, being multiracial, Japanese American, African American, what were some of the things within your childhood and early memories that brought racism into sport for you?
I think for me, first of all, Edie, your story was pretty moving, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think for me is my dad growing up in Houston, being a black man from the South, and my mom being Japanese, and my father was in the Marine Corps. So we kind of moved around a lot. And I think for me, the tough part was really trying to figure out who I was, because I can't tell you how many times people came to me and said, "What are you?" And it's like, what do you mean, what am I? And I think that, so I think at that point, I wasn't dark skinned where my black friends weren't going, "Hey, you're with us." I didn't speak the language Japanese. So it was almost like the thing for me as far as the racism part of it, Jessica, and there's been isolated incidents, but nothing like what ED described. But I think for me, it's the pressure I felt to conform, to be like white America, because if I didn't talk like them, act like them, then I was going to be an outcast. And so it was more of my kind of fight or flight. How am I going to survive? And it's not even really being proud of who I am, a half black, half Japanese man. It's kind of just conforming to what society wanted. And so I'm just really embarrassed. And what happened this year, to really come to the forefront and say, I kind of withheld who I was as a man, or my parents, because not to say I was embarrassed, but I just didn't go and show how proud I was of my background. And that's really, it's hard for me to admit that, because it's embarrassing to my late father, my mother, and you should be proud of who you are. And I think that with what transpired this year really brought that out. And, I'm happy I was able to do that.
How have you used that, Dave? I mean, and thank you, by the way, for just being so open about it, because I feel like that's the biggest thing this year has brought, is those uncomfortable conversations. You have the ability now to impact, so many people, but also just your players, and the conversations in and around everything this year. So how have you used kind of your own experiences, things you would maybe have changed to have conversations with the people that you're around now?
I think it's just even like what Eric said about how what happened in his experience in Indy affected his love for football. I think for me, as a manager of the Dodgers, I think that when they can see me be vulnerable, and, a word that you always hear is transparency, but it's real. I think that to talk about things that have affected you, the fears, the things that have really shaped who you are as a person, I think it just makes people in baseball and sports, and in particular my players, go, man, Doc can even, relate to, because we all have things that we're afraid of or make us uncomfortable. But I think that the way things have evolved, and there's a lot of bad things that are going on in our country, clearly, But I do think that some of the things that now, when Eric was this disgruntled black athlete, now it's like, let's hear what he has to say. And a lot of what he said was true. And so for me, I was guilty of pushing things under the rug and just moving forward to try not to make waves, because I don't want to be that angry black player that wasn't received the right way in an organization or a clubhouse. And so, you know, on one side, did it benefit because I kept moving forward? But on the other side, it's like, it's sort of embarrassing because I could have taken a stronger stand in a lot of different situations.
Well, Julian, you are a player now. You come from an area that you're incredibly passionate about. A ton of farm workers in Lompoc. You've been unbelievable with your help and your efforts to kind of bring more awareness. But how are you in this time utilizing, obviously, this new, I mean, you're so new to the professional realm, but being able to use the notoriety to make change?
Well, being so young, everything's super crazy to me. I'm still learning. I'm new to this world. But just with all the vets on my team, it's a big thing for me to make change. And being so young and having a platform to be able to use it. I mean, anybody can use whatever platform they have. It's so little, so small. It doesn't matter what platform you have. Everybody is part of this change. So I think it's super important to me to make change in not only my community but just around the world. Because being so young, a lot of people will look down to you, and I have a good following, and I just want to put my thoughts and whatever I feel out there. And for me, it's been a very important year for me to just use my voice, and not just for me but for everybody. I think it's an important year just to go out there and just be yourself. Just whatever you're feeling, just tell everybody. And for me, it was definitely very important to use my platform for the change.
Being in LA, Julian, too, and being a Hispanic player, how important has it been for you to kind of own that? And even with Latinx and so many different things and movements that are happening, globally, but within the community of Los Angeles, what have you seen, and honestly, what have you even thought about in representing that entire community?
For me, I'm truly, it's an honor to be able to be Latino and represent the community. It's something that means a lot to me personally, especially someone who is younger. I take in a lot of pride in giving an example to the next generation and the younger kids coming up. To be able to give back and show them that you can use whatever platform you have to create change.
Julie, I mean, you have the ability, and this is something we're going to tap into. And Eric, I know too, you've had a lot of thoughts on, the upper levels. I mean, you're the president of this new sports franchise, and when we talk about change, we're already seeing it with the ownership group that you've put together and the diversity. But what are your plans in even like hiring and having, diverse representation, not only at the lower levels, but even executive suite type levels?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Jess. Julian used the word platform, which is a word that I use a lot. I think today we're realizing that we have these platforms that if we build awareness for and amplify in the right way, not only can we build engagement and drive fandom, but we can impact change and make a real difference. And I think we've seen that over the last sort of 6 months of what's happened here in the US. As we've been building Angel City, from the very beginning, we talked about this club being bigger than a game. We never talked about it as a soccer club. In fact, early on, we talked about it as an entertainment experience. And we also talked about the fact that we wanted to build an organization where mission and capital coexist, where we recognize the value of this platform. And if we lean into it in the right way, we could be champions on and off the field, which is ultimately our absolute desire, and set higher expectations as we do it. And so for us, that doesn't just stop with the product we put on the field, but it starts with the people that you put behind the product. And that's the front office, the coaches, the players, the community, and your investors. As you mentioned, we have nearly 60 investors from various different industries, such as entertainment, technology, venture, product, And we've got 14 former U.S. women national team players. And that scope allows us to really think differently about building this club and to think about DEI as we put the team together as well as the front office together to support it. So we built Angel City from the beginning with 3 women co-founders, Natalie Portman, the actress and activist, Karen Nortman, the venture capitalist here in LA for Upfront Ventures, and myself. We currently have a majority female-owned, run, and funded club. I think we're close to 90% female on the operations side of the house, and diverse in race as well, and sexuality. And it's important that we build a company that is representative of the fan base and the audience that we want to support. Otherwise, we think we just fall down on the job. And we pair that with this idea that our passion and purpose is going to lead to an organization that can have impact and be profitable. Because at the end of the day, we want to show that not only can a women-led business, but a sports organization can be profitable when you lead from purpose and not just by caring about the scoreboard at the end of the game.
Absolutely. And that's a big point too, because there is, and Dave, I know you go through this as well, but like that balance of like, you want to win, you want, the outcome to be, where you're out there training and you're playing baseball, football, soccer. But there's also, I'd say more so this year, this almost importance of athletes using that activism, using their voices. And a lot of times it's now on the field where it wasn't before. Dave, I just want to ask you, like, how do you, when you're managing a team, I mean, all the decisions that you've got to make on a day, just your lineup alone and like just battling, all those things, but then, the conversation around what players can also do on the field to voice how they feel in a time that's, I think, never been more important.
Yeah, that's multi-layered. It's interesting because I'm kind of old school where, you play for an organization, you wear the same uniform, there's a way to be professional and whatever, what that means. But to be a manager with these young players like Julian, you got to evolve. Younger players think differently than I did or Eric did or Julie did, so it's like, it's more of letting and understanding that how we can get the best out of these guys. And individuality is very important. And some guys feel that they got to show some individuality with their uniform. And so that's something I've had to soften to and understand that ultimately it's not about me. It's about letting these guys be the best versions of themselves. And that in turn is going to get the best out of them performance-wise. And the other part of it is that I do love the way that players are now using their individual platforms to now speak on different things that they believe in. And I think that as opposed to just being in that one box of, I'm just a baseball player, I'm just a soccer player, I'm a football player, that's all I do. Now it's almost like these athletes or celebrities are having the responsibility, opportunity to now get educated about certain issues and things that they believe in, which is most important, to then speak on it. And so now you're getting traction from celebrity, from athletes. And I think it's actually making these athletes more dynamic and in an ironic way, better at what they do, because a lot of their attention, some of their attention can be focused on other things and to make them think differently, see things differently, hear things differently. And I think it does translate to a better, more well-rounded athlete.
Actually, to that point, but to that point, the NWSL was really interesting to watch because they were the first league that came back during the pandemic. And they were playing during a lot of the BLM protests as it started to grow. And our commissioner actually spent a lot of time with the Black Players Coalition to understand what was important to them and what messages they wanted to put out there, and to make sure that the league was collaborative with them to make it possible for them to have these demonstrations. And that included them wearing BLM warm-up t-shirts. It included making sure the anthem was played on national broadcast so the world could see the players kneeling, as well as having moments of silence. So it's really interesting, at least in this league, where the league is really supporting the player level initiatives and creating a safe environment for them to use their platform and to use their voice and to affect change, given, all the fans around the world watching.
But that conflict, I feel like it still exists for many. You can go within certain teams, whether it's Major League Baseball, the NFL, where maybe the owners, the front office, sometimes even the coaches aren't in agreement with a lot of things that the players are doing. And, Eric, I know that you've talked a lot about and frustration of the very few Black coaches, very few Black general managers. So a lot of times the people that are making the decisions are completely different when you have so many Black players that are out there on the field wanting their voices, their opinions, represented, and there still is this conflict at times because you're not seeing that full representation at the highest levels. What are your thoughts, Eric, on how that can change, specifically with the NFL?
Well, the NFL is really the good old boy system, and I think a lot of people, they don't want to talk about it. It's almost like taboo. It's like certain things you don't say. It was like going back to myself, like I was considered the angry Black guy because I was just telling the truth. As my dad would say, the truth ain't popular, son. Just know that the truth is not going to always be popular with people, and that's what it is. It's just like we don't have enough Black coaches. I mean, it's a joke. It was I can't think of the coach name in Denver, and he said that we don't have a race problem in the National Football League. I'm like, why we have the Rooney Rule in? I mean, you got to put a rule in place for you to interview Black coaches, but you don't have to hire them. So that shows it's a problem. You have a league that is pretty much probably 80% Black, but you have 3 or 4 head coaches, and I think maybe 1 general manager, Black general manager. I mean, it's something wrong with it. Something wrong with that picture. And coaches, the Black coaches, they do want to coach. I mean, it's funny how they treat them. It's like they will have them coach another guy, one of their buddies that they brought over, coach him up, and they will give the buddy the job. And it's just all this is just a systematic rollover. It's funny when I see these guys say, "Oh man, these organizations, we're so happy to have him. We're so lucky to get him." I'm like, he was a bum over there. And all of a sudden, he's gonna be so great over here. I mean, it's sad that I can say for NFL players, one thing about NFL players we're very proud. We're very proud. We don't like to complain. We talk to complain. You don't complain. You're hurt. You just don't. You don't do that. And you don't stand up against the system. A lot of guys won't stand up against the system. I mean, they won't. I mean, I had a deal I was trying to do with the retired players and the Hall of Fame guys, just to get health care, just to have proper health care and a proper pension. I mean, it's sad when you look at guys that played for 15 and 16 years that's getting $500 and $600 a month. But see, you don't know that. You don't know that. The NFL, they make you seem like it's like they always have this adage that we are family. It's the funniest thing in the world. We're family, and we're not family. We're your enemy, and we know that. I give you a quick example. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm at the Hall of Fame, and the girl from the league, she said, "Eric, can you do me a favor?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Can you? I'm gonna have someone come and interview you and ask you. We're doing a survey, just putting it, just to get a survey. How do the players feel about the NFL?" I said, "Come on, girl, you asking me?" She like, "Well, Eric, I know you're gonna tell the truth." I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So sure enough, I get up. When I'm playing golf early that morning. So it's a guy and a girl. And she says, so the question is, I said, "So tell me what the question is." Well, the question is, how do you feel about the National Football League as a whole? I said, not the players, but the league itself. She said, "Yeah, how do you feel like the league has treated the players and has, helped the players?" I said, "They're like a bunch of pimps and we're the whores." Excuse my mouth. I said, that's how I feel. I said, "That's how I feel." I said, it's atrocious how the league treats the players. I said, but the players won't say anything. They don't have the backbone to stand up, And so by that time, Lawrence Taylor was walking by. I said, "Watch this." I said, "Ask him the same question." She said, "Mr. Taylor, can I ask you a question?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "How do you feel about the NFL? It's fuck it. I hate them, mother. I mean, he just went on and on. They don't do nothing. So I said, okay, we get it. So at that time, Richard Dent was coming by. I said, ask him the same question. We all play golf. I said, ask him the same question. Mr. Dent, how do you feel about the NFL? The NFL? Man, I hate the NFL. They're a bunch of pimps. I said, see? I said, Marcus Allen. I said, ask Marcus Allen the same thing. Marcus a little bit more diplomatic. He said, well, they don't treat the players right. She said, we're like an afterthought. And I said, we don't like that. So, I mean, for us as players in the NFL, you want to love the sport that you played. You really do. You want to love that sport. You want to have that love affair with it forever, because it is a sport. It's like being a kid all over, like playing baseball. My first sport was baseball. I love baseball. I mean, but in a sense, they take that away from you and make it so ugly, and it's just. I guess it saddens me so much that so many players dislike the National Football League the way they do. Because I hear other players talk about their sport, like baseball, like, how they, their health care and their pension, how it's great. And how ours is, it's laughable. And it's really hurtful. And the thing is, I think the most important thing for players is it's embarrassing, but the guys would never say it.
But that change, that honestly happens when change is made from the decision makers. I mean, that's the thing. If the players can feel that way, but the power needs to be from the very top down. And yeah. I mean, Dave, I think about even, we were talking about just more coaches, more, everything. But in baseball, we're seeing less players. I mean, there's just not a lot of, you don't see a lot of minorities, especially African-American community, participating in baseball as much as they used to. How does that change happen? Obviously the youth level, but just getting more players. I mean, like Eric. I mean, Eric's first love was baseball, and getting more players to stay with the sport and continue to play at the highest levels.
Yeah, I think it's very systemic, and I think that it's a really good conversation. It's a deep conversation. I think. One part of it is, the hiring, and the other part of it is the athletes. And you look at over the last 20, 30 years, is the athletes, the black player has considerably gone down. And so now, Eric alludes a little bit as far as on the hiring on the administrative side, executive side, people hire people that look like them and think like them. And so what happens is that when you get the middle-aged white man who hires people that are like-minded, then you just don't get the minority hires, let alone the black man in baseball, as far as in a leadership role. And then as far as baseball, the game of baseball has changed. It's a home run, strikeout, and there's a walk, and there's not a lot of action in the game of baseball. And so I think that when I first came up playing baseball, the batted ball in play, the stolen base, all that stuff, the action, the little ball was a big part of baseball. And you take, the inner city and kids that can run and be dynamic. If in baseball now, the compensation goes to how hard you throw the baseball and how far you hit it. So I think that if you look at the inner city, it just doesn't make sense for that young black kid to come out and play baseball when basketball is marketed better. They just don't see black players in baseball, so they can't identify with that. So now it's either basketball or football. And so I think that, the way that fundamentally baseball is set up as far as the logistics and the rules and how the game is played, I think needs to be kind of changed and be more dynamic, which I think we're trying to do that as an industry. And also I think that the hirings need to happen more, and we just need to be more intentional in hiring minorities and black men and give them opportunities, because there's many people that are more than capable.
Absolutely. It actually makes me sad. Like, as much as, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I felt this way when it's like, the first woman to do something, and it's 2020. Dave, for you to be the first Asian American manager, to be the second African American.
For the Los Angeles Dodgers, that's crazy.
Right? No, and that's
it's like, and I think that Major League Baseball, we always kind of celebrate Jackie on one day, and it's the Dodgers, and then it's like, I'm the first, black man, minority manager for the Dodgers. I mean, that's just absurd. And I got a call from Cito Gaskin after we won the World Series, and he's the last black man that has led a team to the World Series. That was 93. So as proud as I am, happy as I am, I'm saddened that it's been that much of a void.
Yes, and that's the biggest thing is people say it like congratulations, like you're, and I've taken it the same way where I'm like pissed. I'm like, why is it 2020 the time when these things are happening and there's no congratulations in my mind a lot of times, just because I'm like, women should have been doing this 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We should have had 1 million African American coaches, Asian American managers. It's insane. Julian, when I think about, just the sports, I mean, you being the athlete that you are and growing up in Lompoc, I mean, why soccer? Why was it soccer was the sport that you chose?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. My parents never played soccer. My mom actually played basketball in high school, and my dad didn't play any sports. I think it was just because I have an older brother and an older sister. They were both into soccer. I played with a bunch of kids at my park at a park in front of my house, and ever since I was about 6, 7 years old, I loved it. So I never wanted to stop. I knew it was always something that a dream that I always wanted to accomplish. And my dad was always a hardworking man, and he came from Mexico at a very young age to provide for our family. He was 15 or 16, I think, when he came into the States. Had nothing out here. He was by himself, had no family. He was working in the fields day in and day out, and for me, it was just he was able to provide for us, and whatever he wanted to do, he did it. So I think for me, it was just what it was. If I wanted something, I had to work for it and do and show my dedication. And I've always wanted to become a professional soccer player. And for me, it was just being uncomfortable. I don't like being comfortable in situations, and I think my being comfortable is bad for a player and people to grow. So I was always a person that wanted to grow as an individual outside of soccer and inside of soccer. So I think for me, it was to be honest, it was just myself. It was just something that I love, and something that kept me out of trouble, something that had me focused on what I wanted to do. And I knew I was a lot of people were telling me that I was good at it, and I had a chance to do it. So I just pursued it, and I worked hard for everything that I have now.
When I think about the future, Julian, I mean, a lot of eyes turn to you. I mean, it's not only the age of being 19, but what you've done and accomplished already at a young age, your drive, through motivation through your father. There's been so much that you've done, especially to give back to your community. I think all of us can look back at when we were 19 and almost laugh to think, what you've already been able to accomplish, but also the foresight that you have to understand the importance of give back and community. But when you look at your age group, when you look at your peers, and you're looking at social media and the conversations, especially this year, George Floyd, everything that's happened, what do you see as far as the future if you look at every 19-year-old or everyone within your age group as to where we're headed?
I've seen a lot of people my age right now with everything going on in the world. I've seen all my friends on social media, all the people my age, even younger, people older. Everybody wants change. I mean, there's still a lot of racial things that are going on in our world and inequalities that are still happening here in our country. And I think everybody wants change, including myself. And, and being so young, we're the future. So we have to use our voices and advocate for what we want and just be loud, show everybody that we want change. It's crazy to think that we're so young, but we get what's happening in the world, and we all want change.
And you'll help create that with everything that you do. Julie, I think of the challenge. I mean, everyone here is based, rooted, connected in some form or way to Los Angeles and the community around. It's a melting pot. I mean, you're dealing with different cultures. I mean, we all know what LA is, and it's not something that you can define with just, you know, a few things. I feel like one of the biggest challenges you have is how do you represent? And I love it with, you know, Casa Nuestra and like so many, you know, different things that I've seen you do with Angel City, but how are you planning to represent such a diverse background in Los Angeles moving forward?
That's a powerful question. I think part of it is just being aware, right? It's not looking back 10 years and being like, oh, we should have done something, right? It's having the forethought to look at our community, see what it's made of, and make sure that you have a product offering for everybody. So like you've mentioned, you've seen it in the way that we talk to our community and speaking in both English and Spanish. You see it in the businesses that we highlight, the areas that we highlight, the fans that we highlight. But what's really interesting about women's professional soccer is the idea that it's only young girls or families is just not true as far as who the fan base is. You know, there's a large LGBTQ community. There's a large girl dad community. There's a large millennial and Gen Z community who are following these incredible new players like Rose O'Lell, who again are using their platform to pursue their passions outside of soccer, as well as to lean into social issues that are important to them. So when you look at the fan base of soccer, it in and of itself is so diverse. And if we're going to be successful, we have to make sure that we create a culture that embraces everybody, products that excites everyone, and really a mission that everyone can lean into, because there's a big difference between being, you know, a fan and, you know, a fanatic fan, right? There's a difference between watching a game on TV and making the effort, at least here in Los Angeles, to buy a ticket and drive downtown to watch it. And we have to create the reasons for them to have that level of engagement with us.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm so excited to just be like a fan of what you're going to be able to bring in 2022, correct?
Yes,
Can we just
maybe a little way.
Because it seems like so long from now, especially time's moving so slow. It seems like this year's been the longest year ever. You know, Julian, I thought you brought up a really good point with the word uncomfortable. This will be kind of my last question to the group, but you know, I think change happens through kind of the uncomfortable, which is what your point was, Julian, like to be great, to stand out, to create the change that we ultimately all want to see. So I kind of want to ask you individually, all of you, what within your realm, how can you create that uncomfort, getting outside of what the norm has been within Major League Baseball? Eric, within your world, just writing the book right there probably got you a little maybe uncomfortable. You know, Julie, you're doing it. Julian, you mentioned it, but Dave, I'll start with you. It's not easy. And I feel like, to be honest, someone who's covered all sports, Major League Baseball is the hardest. If, you know, Eric mentioned Good Old Boys Club, you know, I feel like Major League Baseball, it's America's pastime. I mean, you can't get more based and rooted in tradition than baseball. You love that, but sometimes it's the hardest wall to knock down. So I guess I'll start with you, and how within, I feel like, the hardest place in baseball do you create change?
Yeah, you know what? That's a tough one, Jess. I think that the thing is about a lot of things. What makes them great is what is a detriment. And I think the tradition of baseball, the consistency that it's had, you know, since the late 1800s, has also held our game back. I talk a lot about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I think for me, it's something that I challenge myself with quite often. And it's about the idea of kind of putting my pride to the side, because a lot of times we see certain things from one lens and from what we know and what we've experienced. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is trying to continue to be educated and be a better listener. And so I think that those two things have helped me to handle or kind of combat or be comfortable being uncomfortable. But yeah, baseball is so unpredictable. I think that with anything, I'm a history major, with a lot of things in history that are worth anything, they've come with resistance. And, you know, to think differently, to voice the truth is what Eric alluded to, and is unpopular a lot of times, and to be status quo than to not be status quo. So yeah, it's something that I believe in, and I'm fortunate that our organization supports that, and just being consistent with that mindset. But you got to kind of step back when you ask to be uncomfortable, being okay to have those tough conversations. You better be ready to hear those answers, because most times you're not going to want to hear them. So that's something that I try to surround myself with, people that don't necessarily think the way I think.
Absolutely. Those are the best ones.
It's not easy, believe me, because I get irritated pretty easily.
Yeah. That's when you put your pride aside. It's not easy to do.
That's right.
I totally agree with you. Julian, one of the things that Eric, said about, when you're a player, it's so much harder, to kind of do the thing. It's one thing if your organization, your team is like, yes, we're okay with kneeling, we're okay with, all these things, but what happens when there is that conflict, when there is that, I believe and I'm passionate about making a stance on X. Like, how do you continue to push the things you think are important, but also you're playing, you're 19. I mean, you're on the U.S. national team. I mean, there's so many things you have to think about and balance.
I think it all just starts with yourself. I think it's something, if you want to make change, it's going to start with you. And, if you have a team behind you, if you have your friends, the teammates that you have behind you are supporting you, then I think anything can happen, speaking up and using your voice and speaking or doing whatever you want to do for change. I think if you have people supporting you, I think we can do it. Yeah, but it definitely is hard. But I think for me being so young, I think it's very, very important for me to speak out and tell other people what I have in mind, and just even just learning from the older guys on the team, and just learning or just listening to what they think, and how this year has been, and what they think should change. And it's crazy, but it all starts with yourself. And I think anybody can make change if they like, but it's going to be hard because you're going to be telling the truth. Like they were saying, not a lot of people want to hear what you have to say, but you have to do it.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, Dave nailed it, and that's something you're living. You've got a lot of years ahead of you too to challenge that, but it's exciting. Julie, you've got a lot to balance as well. I mean, it's great to have a lot of investors. It's great to have a ton of support, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? And decisions, sometimes they don't always align maybe with the economic, value of, especially political, when you're talking about political, racial, social decisions that you want to support and make. So how do you, within the decisions you're making, balance all of those things?
We don't look at the trade-off. We actually think that the world wants to support businesses that are purpose-driven, that provide entertainment and have the same values that they have. And so we are approaching it without any sort of exception. And an example of that, we talked about racial discrimination. One of the things that we're really focused on is pay equity, and not only for the players, but also just equality and more general, as we try to be as impactful as we can in our community, and then hopefully abroad. And so with Angel City, we have to, walk the walk when we talk the talk. So if we say we're going to do these things, we do them. And one of the first expressions of that was our sponsorship program. So we created the Angel City sponsorship program, where we give 10% of our revenue back to our social impact partners here in the community. And we've outlined 3 pillars of that, which are quality, essentials, and education. But effectively, we've made our partners part of our goal to set higher expectations on and off the field. And we will only speak to brands that believe in that, where their mission work and their community work is truly authentic. And it's not about checking the box, but it's about making a difference. And so we are giving up 10% of the revenue of a non-existent team in probably one of the most competitive markets in the United States. One, because we believe it's the right thing, but 2, because we think that it's not going to impact our profitability. And I can tell you through the deals that we're discussing right now, and the ones that we've closed, that we've not made a single compromise, because doing right and doing good actually can pay positive dividends going forward. And I think you just have to have the courage. It's kind of what Dave was saying. You have to have the courage of your convictions to live it and breathe it and then talk about it. And whether that's shaming people for not following that path or being the leader and pointing out how it's successful and sharing your numbers. But I guarantee you we're going to be more successful because we lead with purpose than being just focused on, building a club that wins.
Julie, I can't wait for your organization to kick ass so then everyone follow suit, because there is a blueprint that's been there for decades that everyone seems to follow, and we need more people like you to blow it up and then show that you can also still win and find success doing things differently. Eric, I'm saving you for last because I feel like, one of the things that just jumps out to me about you is, you are unafraid. I feel like uncomfortable isn't something you fear, but there's so many people out there that look up to you, that will read your book, that know you, that follow you, that want to know how to have that voice, how to push the envelope, how to challenge everything, and being able to do what's right. How do you advise those that maybe don't have the same courage and your ability to speak your mind so that they can do the same?
Well, first of all, I want to commend Julie and Julian. Julie, what you said is so true. When you give back to people, you get it back. You don't wait and say, hey, I'm giving you this so I can get this back. It doesn't work like that. And I've always been that kind of person. That's where I was brought up. That's where I was raised. My dad raised me. And I always said, for me, my dad was the best man I ever knew. People say, who's your hero? My father. I mean, he was my hero. Julian, you as a young man, I look at you at 19 years old, man. I'm like, wow, when I was 19, my God. We didn't have social media. Isn't that right, Dave? We didn't have no social media and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, in a big way, you're very fortunate. You really are, because you can get your voice out there. You can be heard. Back when we played, we had no voice. You had no outlet. And for you, you have such a big voice, and I would say use it. I believe that for me, anybody that knows me knows this about me. If you don't want the truth, don't ask Eric. And I've always stood on that. I've always stood on that principle. I'm not perfect by no means, but I'll say this much: I do what I say and say what I do. Even sometimes when it's sometimes you say, I'll come to the event. You're like, oh my God, why did I say yes to that? But when the event comes around, you know what? I'm there. I'm just that guy. And I feel like that. My dad raised me like that. My dad raised me to be honest, not to be hurtful, not to try to hurt people's feelings, nothing like that. It's just about being honest to who you are. Be true to who you are. When I look at myself in the mirror, I can always say, I'm honest about that. And if it's something bad, I call myself out on it too. I don't have no problem with that. I'm good at calling myself out. But I just feel like in today's age, with the young man, Julian, he's very fortunate because he has a voice. He has a real voice where there was no voice, in the 1980s, in the 1970s, in the 60s, there was no voice. You can do things different now. We wasn't allowed to date Black guys and date white girls and date Latinos. That was like the taboo. That's just how it was. And things have changed. And I think, and you see it even, in politics, you see like the young kids are the one that's making the change. Young kids are like, we're not standing for that. Hey, my best friend is Black, or my girlfriend is Black, or my boyfriend is Black, or my boyfriend is Latino. I mean, and I think it's great. I really do. I just love that people love people, because I've never understood this. One thing that people know about me, I can't stand a person who thinks they're better than you because of the color of your skin or because of your economic standards. I have a real problem with that. I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. So for me, I've always tried to be fair. I'm fair. I call it like I see it. Like I say, I'm not perfect, but you know what? I do like the man that I am. I'm proud of the person I am. The way I raise my kids like my dad raised me. I said, you don't think you're better than anybody. You're not rich. You just who you are, and you treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's my motto, and I've always lived by it. And I just thank God that he's always guided me through. Sometimes, I might not say the right thing, didn't say it in the right manner, but I say for me, God has taken care of me through all my ups and downs. So thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, Jessica. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, thank you, Coach. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, Jessica.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. This is such an important discussion that I hope everyone that's watching continues to have in their own worlds and everywhere that they're at within their own communities. I really want to thank all four of you. You're impacting this world in such amazing ways, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Guys. This was great.